Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and today I'm sitting down with Witney Riley, a transformation mentor who has dedicated 25 years to helping people change their lives for the better. Witney has guided people from bad relationships to fulfilling ones, from weight issues to weight happiness, from financial insecurity to financial freedom. She's a certified EFT practitioner, founder of a unique meditation technique, and the author of 2 books, Make Everything Easier, Get What You Want by Healing Hidden Resistance, and Emotional Souffle. Witney brings a wealth of wisdom to our conversation, and she's even been blessed by the Dalai Lama and nominated by a past client for the Nobel Prize. Well, that's pretty impressive. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I usually kick things off by asking the guests to share with the audience what led them to this path and this place of focus, because I'm sure, as you hear all the time, most of us have a very windy road. So how did you find yourself here?
A very windy road with some cliffs. I think I had to jump off too.
Also kind of common, but yeah.
Yeah, very common, very common. I don't know that I ever saw myself in this role. If you go back, but then once I have opened up to it, there's a part of me that, like, when I say that, says that's not true. You've always seen yourself in this role. So I don't know if your listeners can resonate with that. There's the deep yearning in us, the authentic self that is so covered with 1,000, I did this art project and it had a totem of tongues, and it's about how there are so many voices, including the conditioning of our own voice that wags its tongue at us anytime we try to step out of a conditioned or safe or expected. There's so many words that are covered over us that little yearning, which is a giant roar.
Yeah.
Right. That it can even get through that. Once you find that place, it says, see, I told you so.
Yeah.
See, I told you it'd be okay. So I don't know if that answers the specifics, because I know we always want, well, what does that look like? What does that look like? It looked like staying in college for 10,000 years, it felt like, because one path switched to the next path. And then I graduated and went back for more jobs that, if you line them up, wouldn't look like the same person. Careers, jobs that made sense, but they all inform this unique place where I have such a capacity that even I sometimes sit down in awe that all roads led here.
Yeah, that's kind of the cool thing, that we all finally get where we need to be at the right time, and usually need to collect that experience from all those different things and those cliffs you jumped off to get you to the point where you can be fully in to where you end up and fully aligned to where you end up. So yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
And who knows, right? If this is the end up, right?
Right. I'm somebody who believes that we keep reinventing, we keep growing, ideally anyway. And there's different seasons, right? Some seasons of our lives we're going to grow. And some seasons, and they may be strung together as many seasons, we're sort of in a pattern of just staying put because we have to for various reasons. Like you said, all the words, whether it's conditioning, whether it's self-doubt, whether it's life circumstances, all the things all come together, right? To keep you in that. Yeah.
All the stories.
All the stories.
All the fear, all the sacrifice, all the big things that help us co-create our life.
And you talk about that place of, I kind of almost want to say unrest of this, trying different things in college, trying different jobs, just kind of sort of going in a lot of different places, but never really feeling truly aligned or truly like you had gotten to the right place. And I think that's a feeling that many people talk about. Some people say lost. Some people say it's in the ick zone. Some people say the messy middle. There's a myriad of names. You call it the meh, however you say that.
Meh.
Guys, if you could see our faces right now, the meh zone. Talk to us about that meh zone, because I think they can relate to that. I think many of us in this middle age period, if you're not in it yet, it's either sort of coming on or you've already gone through it. But I think we all can sort of understand that zone.
Yeah. I think the meh can hit us almost at any point, but to really focus on this midlife meh, for many women, we might have that thought in the back of our mind, what next? But I'm too fill in the blank. And all of our, the youthful sort of blind skipping through life into misadventure, right? Trusting in partners, trusting in occupation, trusting in our ideals and our sisterhood, even if we're not labeling it a sisterhood, our friends, even if it's just one best friend, there's a different energy. And then we start making compromises and sacrifices because we align ourselves to things, whether it be just a career or career plus relationship / lots of relationship, however that looks for each of us, right? Or then the children with or without the partner, or, alternative there. It gets pretty confusing and there are so many stories, but the thing that links it is this sort of midlife, what now? Because we've traded our life for a lot of these things. We discovered that maybe our relationship with our child, daughter or son isn't the way we fantasized it would be. And there's lots of pain and letting go and trusting the universe that our child is going to be okay, or feeling like we got ripped off because we thought it was going to be a bond like no other. So then the isolation, we've been treading water and giving, holding it all up, plugging all the holes, starts to get amplified in our awareness.
Yeah.
And so the highs and lows of all the pain in that are there, but in the middle of the highs and lows, there's this meh. What do I do now?
Yeah. How did I get here?
And did I do this? Did I mess up? Did they mess up? It's just this sorting out, and the energy starts to pull in, and there's, it's not like we're dead or we've given up. It's just that we want all of that, feeling, the zest, the direction, the joy, the curiosity of what's over on the other side of that hill, but we don't know how to mobilize and be ourselves, right?
I agree with that completely. And I want to add, it just sort of came to me that I want to add that it doesn't negate that our life could have been fantastic. And our family life could have been fantastic. Our career could have been fantastic. All the things. I mean, yes, for some of us, it's not, right? And listen, if it's fantastic, we all know that means it still came with a lot of turbulence, because nobody's life is just this straight path of perfectness. But even in the examples of having sort of, all the things really, and it being a fairly well-rounded, balanced life, I think most of us would agree and can relate to the fact that we are still givers. We still took turns or made choices that didn't completely align with our authentic self or allow us to shine through or to explore certain avenues, because maybe we needed a steady job instead of the one that was more creative, or maybe we needed, I don't know, maybe we wanted to go off and travel the world, but we ended up having children. I don't know all the things, right? It depends on the person, but it doesn't negate. I guess my whole point is I want to go back and say it doesn't negate for those thinking about it and saying, well, I had a pretty good life. I don't know if I can really relate to this. We're not saying you necessarily had a bad life. It's more about this feeling that you get to of, well, what if I explored this and what's on the other side of that? Or now that life is different, kids are grown, in a different place in my career, whatever the circumstances are. What else? What else is there? And how do I really come back to some of the things I always loved? I want to just add that. It's sort of an and.
Oh, I think I'm really glad that you highlighted that, because I think a lot of us have enjoyed our lives, even if it's been hard and things don't line up with the dream we have, right?
Yeah.
Because the dream pushes us forward. I guess the point, the dream before we know it is an impulse, right? We do the scary thing, like getting married. How many people said that was the calmest day of their life? Having kids, who said that, you want them, but it's still scary because you have no control over the outcome.
Right.
Although we live a lot like we do by accident, right? But so a great life, a fabulous life, a life plugged in with love and adventure also has things that pretty much are always different than the impulse. I mean, we're sitting here talking. The idea of this was a long time ago. And here I'm sitting here talking to you as an expert in this kind of thing that I have pulled together, or the universe actually pulled together for me, because I said yes over and over. And it's different because I'm living it. You had a vision of the podcast. You had that thing that wanted to be created, and it's maybe a little different than how you thought it would be, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's like when we're here, and maybe it's just finding self-love for the first time. That can be the push of the meh. What if changing nothing, doing nothing is the next step for you, and just feeling tremendous appreciation for who you are exactly as you are?
That's hard for a lot of women.
It's hard for a lot of people.
That's valid.
Yeah.
That's valid. Where have you seen success? You've worked with a bunch of clients now over 25 years, kind of focusing on helping people. As people try to get themselves out of this meh zone, where have you seen the most success? Because I think often figuring out the how or taking steps towards something different is often the hardest, the scariest to get started. What have you seen be successful?
Well, all the parts that are the most successful, I've put together in the Make Everything Easier method, the me method, the me to get out of the meh. I never thought about that. But the successful part comes from, and this has been years and years and years and hundreds of clients. When you go find those fractured off pieces, and we all have them, that have compelled us to maybe work harder than we needed to, or sacrifice more, or hide more, or reject loving and accepting ourselves fully, completely, totally, before we lose the 10 pounds or before we gain the 10 pounds, whichever side of the body spectrum you're on there, before you have thick, lustrous hair, like the outside parts, right? Or before you find the significant other that gives you the idea of what you think is success. All the things, right? Loving ourselves exactly as we are. There's a lot of parts that compete with that idea. And so this creates a lot of internal resistance that we don't really even notice. We notice some parts, but honestly, watching people go in and find these pieces and bring them back into wholeness, we have so many more that are so comfortable because we've known them our whole lives that we don't even know they're there. And so doing this process of bringing them back into alignment and loving yourself exactly as you are changes everything without changing anything except for the inside part. And what your listeners can start doing right now, right this second, is take a deep breath and bring in the idea that perfection lives in us. Not perfectionism, but being perfect is already here and it's always been here. And I know everybody just made a funny face. And when I was like, I don't think so. But think about this. Think about this. A baby starts to walk and it falls and it gets bruises. Sometimes it creates lifelong scars. My son has a scar where he only had 2 little teeth and went through his lip, right? We never look at that and go, oh, you stupid blah, blah, blah. Or, you know what? I'm not going to love you until you learn to run. We never say that to a child unless there's some major problem. But we go, wow, look at life becoming. Look at the perfectness already inherent in that child. That has never left you, not for a red hot second, ever, never. You are perfect. You are perfect whether you're 300 pounds or underweight, 84 pounds, and the doctor's saying, go put butter on everything. You're already perfect. You're perfect whether you're a top CEO or you're someone who had an idea that I'm going to do something different from what my mother and my mother's mother and my sisters have done. You're already perfect. You're just looking for the next perfect moment.
I agree completely. And undoubtedly, not having that belief in self is what leads us to getting on that hamster wheel of perfectionism. Always looking for that next thing, always looking for that external validation.
Yeah.
And that has a huge impact on our life. I mean, I know that's something you feel pretty strongly about. And I know myself, I've definitely experienced what that can do to you and how it can actually hold you back. When you actually think it's driving you forward, it's actually holding you back. But can you speak a little bit on that?
There's a lot there, but holding back, sure. Many people are talking about now that perfectionism is actually a coping mechanism to procrastinate, to not be judged. It has to be perfect before I show anybody. It has to be perfect. So there's that, but then there's also the chains of being perfect. So let's say you trade all of these things for this perfect looking life, your body, however you put yourself together, your career, your husband, your house, that thinking that this is a show, right? For other people, living your life in that is agonizing. And I've spoken to so many incredibly smart, beautiful women, and they are feeling crushed. They show up, they give the best parties. Their kids are just the most gorgeous. They take the most amazing trips, but inside they're dying. They're not enjoying a second of it. It is just like image management.
That's a great term.
And then there's everything in between. So here's the deal. You can procrastinate, and that is perfect for you right now. The most powerful healing thing to do is to turn to whatever it is and go, you make sense, or you wouldn't be feeling this. Now, if you want to manage the image, and some of us are designed to really enjoy that, and you're doing it from the inside perfection, fantastic, great. But if you're doing it and then all of a sudden you're noticing your kids getting older and they're pushing back and things are harder and harder and you're feeling emptier and emptier, there's probably, the carrot, the golden carrot at the end of a stick that you're looking for that sense of perfectionism. Someday, maybe I'll get there. So what does it look like? So take a deep breath, the deepest breath you've ever taken, and just imagine for just a minute bringing perfection. What if I'm already perfect? Because you are. And there's nothing in the world that will ever make me believe otherwise. You are already perfect. But for you to accept that just for 1 minute, just do a little game. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life, but for 1 minute, what does that look like? If you're already perfect, what does the next moment look like? Where this perfect moment, absolutely, that is gone now and will never come back. What do you want the next moment, perfect moment to look like? And that just might be giving yourself a hug and crying your eyes out because you're exhausted. And for the first time, maybe in your entire life, you felt a little validation that it is 100% okay to be you.
Yeah. And I do think it's exhausting. I've heard that over and over and over. I also think the biggest lesson I know for me personally was how not available for being present you are when you're so focused on that perfection. You're in your head, you're planning, and you're trying to figure out how to get to that next thing or put on the perfect party or put on the perfect whatever it is, that you're unable to be present in the moment you're in. And they just go by, right? They just keep going by. The moments just keep going by.
They just keep going by.
Yeah.
And the more we do, the faster they go by. It feels like, the more multiple things we're doing simultaneously.
Yeah.
Going back to those parts, what I've seen is when we go back and we see these parts, they can be really young. Like they can go back to being in the womb even. There's so many different stories or moments where our life took a turn and now we're protecting parts of ourselves from ever experiencing maybe a sense of powerlessness, fear, confusion, misunderstanding, trauma, bigger, real serious traumatic events that some of us have really lived through. So you're taking your energy in the present moment to protect that past part. And that past part is doing a coping mechanism that it's traded. Let's say that, life was busy and crazy and you chose to hide to stay safe because your family felt out of control for you or scary. So that part hides. It is coded to hide no matter what for survival.
Your own protection. Yeah.
So then that part sends you into a future that hasn't happened, projecting out and scanning every single thing in every situation to then lay a story of the possibility of feeling this way again and trying to prevent it from happening. So you are way off in the future, protecting something that is maybe never going to happen again, and way in the past, protecting from ever feeling the feeling of out of control, nervous system. So where's the space to be in the present? The only place where you have any power.
Right. Yeah.
You can't change the past and you can't change the future within reason,
Yeah.
What you can do is be here, right now. That's the only moment that exists. And let's say that you've made 10,000 mistakes and you are paralyzed because, well, why choose? From speaking from some of my clients are, in their middle life and they want a love relationship. And they're like, well, I'm paralyzed because I just keep choosing the wrong person, right? So, but that's the past conditioning moving forward. And that's how we get hijacked to not be in our place of reason or take the lessons or go, you know what, maybe for 6 months, a year, 3 months, I'm going to invest in myself instead of a partner. That part goes, you got to go quick. Oh my gosh, you're not 20 anymore. You're not 30 anymore. You're not 40. You know what? You're not 70 anymore. Like when perfection or whatever it is, or the past and the future are in charge, you're always hijacked to act out of maybe your best interest. And maybe it's like, well, okay, 6 months is probably going to be fine because let's say I do the inner work and in 6 months, the present me doesn't have to carry the baggage of my whole life saying that I make bad choices. No, I made bad choices and here's what I've learned. And then I chose to choose me because I've never chose me. So how could I choose a partner that ever chose me?
That's a really great scenario to sort of lay out as an example. So to your point, you've never chosen yourself. You're setting that example for your partners. What could it look like when people do start choosing themselves? How could that show up differently for them?
Oh my gosh, I have some cloud of like all of these different stories. Let's to try and keep it more grounded and not abstract. One woman in a relationship with a guy, they had their sort of energetic partnership where he would make promises, break them, and instead of confronting him, she would dissociate. And then they would have the moment would pass wherever they were. Like, let's say if they were out at a bar and she's like, I only want to stay this amount of time. And he goes, absolutely. You just tell me when it's time to go and we'll go. She does this. He ignores her because he's in the middle of a great conversation. He's having a great time. She, instead of insisting or anything, all of a sudden she sort of dissociates and sits there. And she would come and go, why didn't I call an Uber? Why didn't I stand up and make a scene and ask for my needs to be met, on the extreme side? Or what if I just said, hey, you said it's time and that you would go when I'm ready and I'm ready. A million possibilities, but instead she froze. Well, so we go in and we do the work, and that's just one line of this very complicated relationship. You have the capacity to stay with the complications, right? Those are coded into her. So we did all of the work. Yes, there's some kind of mild male abuse, male dominance, male emotional dysregulation in her family, family of origin, and this like secret escape barter plan she had with her mom. And as a very young girl was like petitioning her father to be a better person. So all of this is coded. So she stays because she's petitioning this person to be a better partner. And the dissociation was what happened when she was a child in these moments where Is today going to be the day my dad kills my mom? Or is today going to be the day I'm going to have to leave everything I know and love with a little suitcase that I have hidden in the back of my closet that my mom helped me pack, and never come back and never see my dad, who she loved? And this woman, I believe she was about 57 when we did the work, believed that life was just managing all of this, like living on a wire about to burn out.
Yeah.
She just thought that is how life is.
Yeah.
Coded deeply in her nervous system her entire life. We went in and started reclaiming these parts, letting these parts off the hook so they could go back to being a child. And she was the one in charge of keeping that part safe. And the partner just melted away. They tried to work it out, but she just like, it no longer resonates. And so the white knuckling or the unbelievable pain of loss, and I'll never have another opportunity, starts to go away. And she is having an incredible life. She's writing her books and not editing them, thinking of other people, but she's editing them for how she wants to write the book. She's traveling all over the world and country. She writes back ever so often, and she'd be like, I don't think I could ever put into words what I got out of doing this, because she loves herself. We're taught to serve, right? Or we're being mean. Oh, other people are so important, right? And then we're thought, well, if I choose myself, I am being mean to other people. But what if the truth is I am just as important as other people, and choosing me helps me be a better service to the people I am here to be of service to? Not don't ever choose yourself because that's mean to others. It's not like, there's this radical transformation where all of a sudden
I'm going to ignore the world. Yeah.
Right. Ignore the world, or I'm going to start being ugly to everybody and overpowering everybody. That's just the swing to the other side. And that's fine if you need to experience that. But there's a place where what does it look like if perfection is already in you and you're looking for the next perfect moment, whatever that is for you?
Yeah.
And you are as equal as the people that you love serving. We love serving each other.
Yeah. I think the other thing worth saying is that what I've experienced and what I've seen so many other people experience is when you sort of start doing that work and putting yourself first, making time for yourself, choosing yourself, even if your partner, your children, your family, whatever, aren't in that shift with you, it naturally shifts anyway. You shift you and the rest shifts.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means you'll make some hard choices. Maybe you won't be aligned with anybody anymore, or maybe you'll choose to spend less time with somebody. But in a lot of cases, it can bring a relationship to a whole better place too.
If you're being authentic, it is always an invitation for someone else to be authentic.
Yeah.
And sometimes those relationships do have to take a pause, and it can be painful and scary and uncertain, but oftentimes they'll come back and realign in a new, better way.
Yeah. And
the ones who don't like it are usually the ones who really benefited from you not choosing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If you look at it from their point, their easy street or their way of coping has now been radically transformed without them having any say-so in it, right?
Yes. Yes. And it's probably worth saying at some point you do have to have some conversations, because you certainly should change the rules of engagement in those scenarios, right? And naturally you'll just do that by choosing yourself and doing things differently. But also, in fairness, you did change. It's like changing the rules of the game and not telling anybody what the new rules are. You have to set the new boundaries, and you have to speak them or communicate them in a way so people do know what to expect and do know what changes you're looking for and how to connect differently with you.
Yeah, and it's not out of an act of punishment or, lack of love. It's just, hey, we've been doing it this way for a long time, and it doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
And it might be hard for you, and I will help you. Especially I'm thinking of my son when I made some changes, right? And I will help you. And this is going to be difficult for both of us. But in the end, I think there's something better for both of us. Like, you need to learn to do your own laundry, At some point, you will benefit from that. me continuing to do it when my bandwidth isn't there won't serve either of us. I'll just be resentful and you won't have a skill.
Yeah.
Or know how to put it into your own life. Because knowing how to do it is one thing, but knowing how to do it consistently and regularly in a way that works for you is important.
It's such a great example because I think we as moms often lean towards overdoing it for our children. We want to do all the things to make them have it easier than we had it, feel better. I don't know, all the things. But I think sometimes it's really hard to set those boundaries, especially when they, obviously they've got to be grown, but set those boundaries when they're grown and really kind of make them step up in their own way and kind of pull yourself back. That's a really great example. And in one where you're showing them and telling them it's not a punishment. I'm not mad at you. That's not why I'm not doing your laundry. I'm not doing your laundry because, I need to take that hour a week or whatever it is because I'm exhausted or I want to do something else or whatever, but also because you're going to need the skill. That's a great conversation. Yeah. Great example.
Yeah. And sometimes we feel so resentful because we've been resenting it for quite some time, along with all the other things, crumbs on the clean counter. It just adds up, right?
Yeah.
And so then it can get blasted and we feel empowered that we're finally making a move. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It can just be a realignment. Now, it could be more of an axe in certain situations. But I tell a lot of my clients, trying to protect everyone's identity here, a lot of my clients, the fastest way to change any situation or any human being is to change yourself.
Yes.
We are always co-contributing in all that we're a part of.
I love that. And I'm trying not to giggle myself, and I can't say who I'm thinking of. There are two women in particular that are in our Facebook community that listen to the show, and they're both struggling with grown children in some of the ways, you're talking or on the cusp of sort of the same patterns. And it can be a struggle. And I think it's a practice, right? You don't get it right. Or you can confirm from what you've seen, but I don't think you get it right the first time. It's not like you flip a switch and go, okay, I'm setting all the boundaries and I'm going to have all the conversations and everything's perfect. I think you recognize it. You start to change yourself. You do set some boundaries. You do have some conversations, but it's something that has to keep being repeated to get better at it.
Sure. But imagine if these women and these grown children, now you are probably the mom is listening to this, bring in that sense of perfection right here, right now. And if you're perfect and you don't know what to do, that is your first step. You take a deep breath and you just, I would always employ EFT if anybody knows that, but it's the meridian tapping and lots of links all over the world about it.
As a matter of fact, we have a couple of previous episodes on EFT as well, and I will be sure to put those links in the show notes so anyone that missed them can take a listen.
Tap or breathe in, I don't know what to do, and accept that it is okay and perfect not knowing. That is the first step, is exactly where you are. If you're already perfect, then you already have the perfect moment. I don't know what to do. And then once you have a good cry, or you maybe go for a walk or have a bath, or just what does that feel like? To let, I don't know, be okay. If you don't know, that is okay. That's already perfect. And then go, okay, I don't know. What's the next step? And so you can circumnavigate being struck down with overwhelm and then doing the laundry, because it's just easier, because you don't want to see all the dirty laundry on the floor, or you don't want to have the altercation, or you close the door, you let them play video games or do whatever they're doing that isn't getting their life for, whatever's bothering you.
Yeah. And
you ignore it. And then the eruption happens again. And that cycle, right? And then if that happens, there's guilt. And so now, I'm going to do the laundry to say I love you. If you take all that away, how is your child supposed to know what the real boundary is?
They're not.
No, because, I feel guilty, so I do your laundry. We're just using laundry. It could be anything to show you that I love you, even though I said mean things to you and told you should get out of my house or whatever, or take responsibility for your life. It can go a million ways. But then I'm showing you that I do the thing I want you to do to say I love you, then it's almost like the inner child in your child is pushing for you to do the laundry because it says I love you.
Well, yeah, because it will sort of erase the guilt. To your point, you feel guilty if you push back and you don't do it, or you start having those feelings of, are they going to hate me? Am I going to lose my kid, child, my relationship, whatever, all the things.
Right. The kid isn't feeling the guilt. The kid doesn't understand that you're feeling the guilt. He or she may not even know this, but mom's doing laundry again to say I love you. Like communication is so much more nonverbal. And here's the thing, no one is to blame. Whenever blame comes on board, we know we're hijacked and triggered. And there's the place to start to get to the treasure, to that part that you want to bring back into wholeness. But so what if you take a deep breath when you want to do that laundry and go, I love him. I love her. This isn't working out for me. I'm perfect. I don't know what to do. And just sit there. Sit there. Don't get hijacked by the anger or the guilt.
So good. Don't get hijacked by the anger or the guilt.
Or all the stories. I did this. I spoiled, blah, 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 blah. I didn't have a partner. My partner was a big fat slob and I did everything for him. So it could be anything.
All the stories. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So sit there. Sit on the mountain of dirty laundry with all the anger and all the guilt and bring perfection into your body and let it be. I just don't know what to do. And that is okay. When you allow yourself to make sense, so many things open up. And then you can make a list. Well, what are some things I could do?
Yeah.
Maybe I can work with Marianne. Maybe I can give Witney a call. Maybe I can do a meditation walk and think about what I can do when I see what a great tool is Whoop. It's at least 20 plus years of research in positive psychology. Wish, outcome, obstacles, plan. Wish my kid would start showing
more responsibility.
Yeah, and making the path towards an independent life. Outcome. Why is that outcome important? I'm ready to reclaim my sense of self after sacrificing all these years. Maybe I want my house to be a certain way. I'm tired of whatever it is. Usually list them in positive things. Is the outcome worth the wish? There's where you stop. Maybe it isn't. And it's like, well, I get companionship, I get this and this, and maybe I could just change the dynamic. And I'm willing to do the laundry because I don't want to be alone. And that's okay. So the next O is obstacles. Okay, let's say the wish is worth wanting the outcome. What are the obstacles? Well, I get triggered every time I see the laundry or the food or the sense that I am not respected, or you put those things and as tangibly as possible, right? When I see this, more than likely this happens. You don't just wish on a star and go, well, this time it's going to be different, even though I have a, lifelong history with this person where it goes off the rails. You go, why does it go off the rails? When does it go off the rails? What happens when it starts going off the rails? And then you make a plan while you're not triggered. What is the plan for each one of those things? And you set yourself up to be more successful making micro or macro changes.
Yeah, when it happens in the future, you're more prepared. I think that ties into, whatever it is you're trying to do and whatever changes you're trying to make. One of the things that we've often talked about is awareness is the first step, to your point. And then I would say, typically we talk about taking a pause, right? Taking a pause and not just acting. And so you're saying the same things, and it's sitting in the moment, and you're saying tap into your personal perfectness.
Sure.
It's also just taking a moment, just acknowledging the scenario, whether you use the EFT tapping to kind of say that out loud or not, you're still acknowledging that you're in this scenario. You don't want to be in this scenario, but this is what's going on and this is how you feel about it. And then taking a pause before you react, before you act. I think that's so important. And I think it's the first step to any change, because often we go through most of our life and we don't even notice these things. So when we start noticing and we start giving us the space to accept where we're at with them and acknowledge where we're at, and then take a moment to really think through what we're going to do next, I think that's already such a big step for a lot of people. Yeah.
Huge. Research has shown, a lot of people use it in business now, but they've done research with like weight management, weight loss by, mapping out the obstacles that have, why would this time be different if, let's say smokers, all the things, if it keeps going the same path, why is this time going to be different?
Yeah.
Without doing something different.
Yeah.
One of my clients, it was so funny. We worked for a couple of weeks and then I was like, I think I see something. And she said, what? And I was like, I think I see a pattern that's working in the background. Do you mind if I throw it out there? And she was like, okay. I was like, tell me on a 0 to 10, how true is this for you? Maybe your listeners will play this game. So 0 is nothing at all, 10 being the most true, intense, or like hijacking. You want to lose a considerable amount of weight and have this image in your mind without changing anything. And she just started laughing. She was like, yeah.
Well, duh.
Right.
Well, duh.
But think about the implications of that. If that is
right,
got you in its grip, like it's,
yes.
You're trying to change something without changing anything. And the brain can hold these crazy paradoxes as like absolutely true.
Absolutely.
And so we get stuck ping-ponging in the middle and we think that we're our thoughts, but we are not.
Yeah, that's a big lesson, that we are not our thoughts. I especially love Dr. Amy Johnson's work in that space. They're just thoughts.
They're just thoughts. And our brain is here for us like a hand or a foot to serve our life, not to direct it, keep it safe in all the ways and figure everything out and tell us what we should do and shouldn't do and what's going to cause us pain and what, there are those parts, but we're the witness of all of those. And our brain doesn't have to just take us on a ride every time it feels like it.
Well, and I know we're running up against time here, but I guess maybe one of the things I'd like to close on is just the topic. You're sort of leading us there, but the topic of, I know you feel strongly about, logic will never get us out of it.
No.
And I do think that for many of us, we think logic will get us out of it. We are creatures of habit. We're analytical thinkers. We think we can think our way through anything. And the reality is it hasn't done that so far. So, and for many of us, we know all the things about whatever that situation is for us, right? We know all the things, but yet we aren't thinking our way out of it yet. So what changes?
So this is, I guess, the biggest discovery that I have made throughout meditation early on and overcoming some panic disorder. I was diagnosed in an autoimmune disorder. Was, you can continue stacking the information. We are definitely info seekers. That's why we're listening to this podcast. That's why we're exchanging our life, together, coming together. I'm not saying that your brain is unnecessary. It's necessary in a lot of ways, but logic, even if you know the whole story, it's just like talk therapy. Great in a lot of situations. Again, not throwing shade, but how come people deal with the same issue for 25 years and it doesn't really move the needle and they feel better for a minute and then they go back to their lives and it's hard again.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because we're so much more than just from, our nose up. And when you give all the responsibility and all the identity to this organ, to this tool to help you navigate life, you disconnect from the rest of your body, which is also extraordinarily intelligent and has been holding every piece of information in every room and every situation your entire life. And that is the place that holds the coping mechanism. And when you leave a board meeting or a family meeting or, God forbid, Thanksgiving, or some family event with all the family or all the friends of the family. And you're like, why did I act that way again? I know Uncle Bob is going to be blah, blah, blah. Why do I let him trigger me? Why does the person walking down the street all of a sudden have the power to take me out of my own sense of pleasure? That is because it's in your body. And that's why finding a way to get in, connect to these very reasonable feelings stored in your body, and then updating them to the story that you're not in the womb anymore. You're not 15 anymore. You're not 25 anymore. You're not whatever it is anymore. And that skill can be done. You can go to bed. You can rest. You can come back into my heart, into the light of being wonderful and necessary. and not have to keep doing this little thing that is taking me off my goals. And then logic all of a sudden floods with blood, because whenever we're hijacked, which is pretty much all the time, our prefrontal cortex, you can see in the MRI, the veins shrink and divert blood away. Our pupils are dilated. Our livers are dumping tons of sugar into our system. And if you're not eating sugar, your liver can turn fat into sugar so that you can run away from bears. Our digestion is just screwed up all over the place because you can't digest if you're coping. It goes offline. So going into the body, trusting that you're perfect and that everything that your body feels is okay to feel and totally makes sense based on its perspective, and bringing that back into alignment, you're able to use your brain the way your brain
is intended, is
designed.
Yeah.
And then all that logic and all of that stacking of information can be so much more successful experimenting with,
Yeah, curiosity can come back into play and you can lead into other areas of your life. Yeah.
Because if you keep stacking information and it doesn't work, what does the brain say? It says, you're not good enough. You're not doing it right. Other people can do it. Why can't I do it? I need more information. I need another program. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need this,
Yeah. Information overload. It just becomes a cycle. Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation and I appreciate your time. We will put all your links out in the show notes so folks can look you up and hopefully check out your book, because I think you've sort of encapsulated a lot of this methodology and your approach there so that people can do some of that work on their own, but also can always reach out if they want some help doing some of that work. So we'll put your links out there. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.